So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Dancers That Shoot, your favorite spot for Latin dancers and content creators. My name is Brandon W., and today we have an extremely special guest today. He has been doing amazing things on Facebook, on Instagram, on Spotify, Google Play, Apple Play. Am I forgetting anything? Is that
No, I mean, you're kind of hitting every spectrum in a sense.
He's on YouTube. He's been doing extremely wonderful things, both in the areas of content creation as well as Latin dance. So I wanted to bring him on really quick. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome Mr. Diamond Dr. Films Rivera. Good sir, thank you so much for bringing on today. I really appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. I appreciate you, Brandon, for bringing me on to your platform and having a chance to talk amongst one another.
Yeah, man, definitely. So yeah, so we're gonna get right into it because I got a lot of questions and I want to make sure that we use our time wisely. So first and foremost, I just want to let you know you may hear some warnings because apparently Philly has a tornado watch. So if you hear alerts,
I hope you guys are staying.
That's what's going on. So as you're aware.
No worries.
But yeah, so let's get right into it. So tell us, who is Dr. Films Rivera? Who is Diamond?
So basically, for me, in a kind of a nutshell, I've been dancing since about 1996 in this salsa scene. And as I grew, I was a performer, a spectator. I then transitioned into becoming a videographer for the last 5 years. But then as of recent, realizing, especially with quarantine, I started seeing a lot of my dance community really being outspoken and realizing like, hey, I have an opportunity to use my voice in a positive way of helping others, starting the dialogue to a lot of concerns that us have in our communities, because the same struggles we go in real world or real life are the same struggles we evidently go through in our dance communities from the various guests I've talked to.
Definitely. And one of my previous episodes, we actually, dipped into that a little bit. So I personally appreciate the fact that you're going out of your way to try and bring more light to more of these issues that we have and that we face, in our dance community, especially with everything going on, like you said, with quarantine and everything, which we will be touching on in a second. So we'll get to that. But so because this is a channel that focuses on dance as well as content creation, we're going to touch on both topics. But as it stands, like you said, you started as a dancer. So give us a little bit of background about your dance career.
Yes, actually, I started with the late David Melendez in the Bronx with his Starlight Dance Studio. He had a group. Over the years, I've been in that school about 10 to 12 years. Gradually in that school, we were then kind of thrusted into groups, so had opportunities to perform not just locally, but then abroad. I think one of my first shows in one of the groups that this school had called the Heartbreak Boys was in Philadelphia.
Nice.
For an Art in Motion event. I remember it was in this kind of like auditorium, old school looking place. I forgot what it was called. But for me, being that performer in that school and then transitioning into a group that I used to have or be a part of called East Side Edition, which was a 3-man solo group from 2008 to 2010. From there, I transitioned. I worked with Gifted Souls NYC with Matthew Rivera.
Shout out to Matt.
Yeah. So I actually, side note, I actually met you at the Philly Salsa Fest years ago because you were doing work with House of Aperture. You had a vendor booth. And I remember I was watching the video and you were looking at me like, what are you looking at? And I was like, no, I'm looking at, and I remember I was like, I'm looking at me. I'm looking at what I'm doing. But and that was kind of my introduction, meeting you and realizing, wow, videographer in the scene. But from there, I worked with Gifted Souls. I've trained at Santo Rico, worked with Flamboyant Dance Company from Macy's. So for me, really, my life dance has always been a part of my life. So for me, I always felt evidently as I grew that I wanted to lay an impact on our culture that long after I was here, especially as a dancer, people would remember me for the right reasons.
Right. And that's awesome. And that's actually a great segue into next topic, which is your film career. So um from what it sounds like you're very similar to me in that you had a dance career, and you used that dance career as a way to, leapfrog into film. So how did that come about?
Well, for me, I really noticed that, especially probably the mid or late 2010s, you had the infamous Nuevo Tech, which was like, I mean, from Demas and Alan and Harry,
Yeah.
that work for me. That always was inspiring to me because evidently we didn't have many platforms that our community could see groups from Philly, groups from New York, groups from California, and just because again, congresses and events are expensive to travel to, so being able to
Where we leave off, sorry, my
no,
apologies.
you were asking about the filming and kind of my inspiration came from groups like Convos, but then also me going to Bachatu, an Island Touch
Right.
event, really inspired me because I just saw all these people and I brought my camera just thinking about having fun, and it turned into me filming like over 40 hours of footage and me like just taking and you understand what it means. You say 40 hours of unedited footage, and I have at my
You
disposal.
got that, man. Oh
It's
God.
not easy, but I actually, instead of being turned off by it, I fell in love with it because as a dancer, I just hear the music different, but I also
Right.
see my subjects that I'm filming differently. I
Yeah.
have a different respect and a different regard for them, but I also have the responsibility of putting them in the best light possible. So, I mean, for me,
Yes.
the filming really inspiration totally, it just comes from my dance community that has given so much to me and that I get inspired by every performance that I see.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, definitely. And listen, I will give it to you as far as 40 hours of footage, and you weren't even hired. Like,
Yeah.
dude, like I remember the very last Congress that I shot. We shot, and it wasn't just me. It was me. It was me, two other volunteer videographers under me, and two other photographers. And we came home with hours and hours of 4K video. And this is just when 4K video was like just starting to become the
Yeah.
norm, right? So add all that to go through, and then about 15,000 photographs from three different photographers. I mean, at the end of that event, I was like, I'm going to die editing. So for you to take that responsibility on and not even be like the designated shooter, just doing it just to do it.
Yeah.
More power to you, good sir.
No, I
But you
appreciate it
understand.
because, like, I understand too. I mean, from the filming, from then to now doing congresses and festivals, I definitely understand what the total task of really filming and then the editing process. But I guess a lot of the dancers don't understand that it's not as easy as we film you and give it to you.
Right.
There's a process that goes along with that. So I'm glad that me and you can kind of like
Oh, yeah.
dialogue on that.
We right here.
Yeah,
we right here.
absolutely.
I mean, so we got started on your film career. Tell us about some of your your most favorite dance projects that you've worked on. So, like, if you have a favorite team that you were on, a favorite routine, or anything along those lines, like what really stood out to you as far as your dance career is concerned?
For me, I would definitely say the most hardest training, memorable company that I was a part of was Gifted Souls NYC with Matthew and Crystal, because the amount of hard work, and I don't just mean that lightly. I mean, imagine going into a world or a dance studio that you have a 3-hour rehearsal, an hour and a half of cardio, plus an hour and a half or maybe 2 hours of actually rehearsing.
That's awesome.
So,
See, I need that right now. It's
so,
like with quarantine going on, it's just like I miss that. I need that back in my life.
yeah, I
That's
mean,
awesome,
for us, we took it for granted, but I mean, I respected it because I realized how many dance companies don't really do that. And
Right.
what they were training us for was endurance, because evidently when the routine was finished and we kept rehearsing, we realized that you had to have enough endurance or you would just phase out or you would just like totally burn out. And for me, that was a memorable one, but one of the most memorable was working with Thomas and being a part of his
Santo
production
Rico.
routine he did at the Santo Rico Harlem before it had closed down. But I mean, there's been a couple teams I've been on, but those two specifically really touched my heart.
Nice, nice, cool, cool, cool. All right, so that's the dance side of things. As far as film, what would you say is your most favorite film or content creation project that you've worked on so far?
I mean, for me, one of the projects that I hold dear to me was a project I had debuted at I believe it was called the DCBF or DCSBF. This was a few years ago. I had created a project called The Beauty of Bachata,
Okay.
and used a song from Juan Luis Guerra. And I really just like grassroots. I called people, I text messaged them, DM'd them like, hey, you want to be part of this project? I literally would travel to them, film maybe a 20 to 30-second segment. And that took up a time of almost 6 to 8 months of literally trying to work with people's schedule, find them, let's find this section. We had to alter when it came to different weather conditions. But for me, the beauty of it, bachata, really is just seeing the smiles, the movement, the feeling, the emotion from each dancer I was able to capture. Besides that, I would say my many trips to the Dallas Bachata Festival, that I'm actually the head media team over there. And it's a blessing just being able to come all the way from New York and come all the way to Dallas and
Down south.
have people, treat you like family. And literally, last time I was there filming, I remember I did not sleep for about 27 hours straight.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah. So, and that was just one day. And then I got some sleep for about 3-4 hours, then did it right back again.
Back at it. Yep. I know the feeling. Know the feeling. That's awesome. So cool. So like I said before, we were going to talk about the elephant in the room, COVID. So let's talk about it, because as it stands right now, COVID, it's literally affecting everybody. It's affecting, every single industry. It's affecting young, old, male, female, every single race, creed, and everything. So do you feel that COVID has forced not only dancers, but also creators to really step their game up as far as their skill sets? Or do you think that, it's been more of a hindrance to them progressing?
Well, I think what people have to understand, especially as dancers, is that the online world or the online marketing portion of your brand was always there. But I think the biggest difference was there were people that capitalized on it before this sudden situation happened. Right. And then there were other people that had to adapt and catch up. And we realized, especially during COVID, and this was a post I had seen months ago, a few weeks ago, actually, I'm sorry, that somebody said, it was a meme about dancers saying, remember when dancers said you couldn't learn anything online? And now,
you can't learn from YouTube dancers. You can't.
Yeah, so I mean, that post alone hit me, because I remember going to congresses, and you understand when you go to the hotel room for just to chill down, not the party, but you get to chill, and then you have those really meaningful conversations with such artists, and these topics come up. But realizing now we're in a situation that, again, COVID has affected our dance community specifically the hardest, because we thrive on connection. We thrive on socialization, being close to one another. So this virus specifically affected not just the US, but globally. So I noticed that when I was doing my platform, that a lot of the artists that I would speak to, especially people like Tina Cavicchio, Kyla Hallams, that their stories were so special because it went beyond dance. And I realized that with quarantine, a lot of people have gone through their own demons. And now during this time, it can mount even more. And realizing having a platform that people can come and have a safe space and not feel like they're going to be judged or biased against their viewpoints, that was important for me, because I realized over time there will be moments that I will have people on that I may not particularly agree with certain notions, but that's okay. I love giving people an opportunity to speak from their heart, because during these times, a lot of people are very tense or very nervous to say how they feel, because they always feel a backlash coming. But with dancers and the online game, I've definitely seen a lot more artists more than ever now utilizing the online marketing, from the Zoom classes, donation-based classes, even some artists now doing podcasts like yourself and me.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And touching on one of the things that you said that I think is really important. I know personally quite a few people that got involved in dance for reasons of mental health. Right? They got into it because they maybe it spans the gamut from going through a bad breakup to actually having depression that at sometimes can actually be debilitating. And dance not only served as an outlet for them, but also as a kind of therapy. So when the quarantine and COVID happened, now you're taking that pretty much what a lot of people were actually using as therapy. You're basically taking that away from a large chunk of our community. And so you see every now and then when people post memes saying, check on your introverted friends, they're not okay. It's like, you kind of laugh at it, but then in the back of your head, you got to think, well, this is actually correct. A lot of people may not be okay. So I think that having that kind of communication, even if it's not, direct two-way communication, even if it's not, on a social dance floor, having people still being able to connect to their favorite dancers, still in some way, shape, or form, still gives them that type of therapy, knowing that there are people out there that are going through the same thing that you're going through, that can commiserate with how you're feeling. And, I think that kind of, not fully, but it sort of helps to alleviate some of those issues as far as like mental health. And at the same cars. Sorry, I live on like one of the busiest thoroughfares in like the city. So, but yeah, I at the end of the day, mental health is so important. And I do believe that, not even just the dance community, but I think society as a whole, there's such a stigma against it. And it's, it's so taboo to, talk about these things. And it's like, no, if anything, that's one of the main things that we should be talking about, especially now when everybody has pretty much had all of their main source of social contact taken away. Now more than ever is the time where we really need to, address, mental health in this country. So I do feel like, people going out there and using Zoom, using FaceTime, using Instagram, and staying in contact with people, that goes a long way with, helping people deal with that societal aspect and deal with, making sure that those mental, not instabilities, I hate that word, but, their mental health is taken care of, and making sure that you maintain that.
No, I definitely agree, because like you said, having dance being one of a coping mechanism for people with depression, with mental health issues, and realizing that many of the people that attend the events you maybe organize or film at, they go because it's their sense of escape. It's their escape from the reality. But when reality is truly set in and you're in this mode, for me, and I tell a lot of people, like I've told on different episodes and my guests, my experience with being in the military, it made this part easy for me. And that's a weird thing to say, because in the military and training, we're used to being isolated. They purposely do that. So when you come into a situation like this, I would also see the memes from the military saying, wow, this is a piece of cake. Stay in your house. But realize, it's a funny way of thinking about it. But in reality, I realized the social responsibility that I had now of protecting and understanding the guest stories, and realizing that the people that I love on stage are just as human as me.
Exactly. And I think that, definitely, having these platforms and using it to not only introduce people to, the movers and shakers in this community that, they may have not known otherwise, giving them that awareness. But in addition to that, you're also humanizing them. You're, letting people know that, okay, they have thoughts and feelings and opinions just like the rest of us, like,
Mm-hmm.
Granted, don't get me wrong. There's so many amazing dancers out there that have worked their asses off to, make sure that, they have that presence both on and off the stage. But at the end of the day, they're still humans. They still have thoughts. They still have feelings. They still have opinions. They bleed the same blood that you and I do, and I feel that us doing what we're doing, especially you, because you've gone and just ran with this, but, you definitely, I think, humanize a lot of these people that, by and large, a lot of the common folk, civilians, they look up to, and I really do feel as though that, that's definitely something important and worthwhile that you do. And I personally appreciate you for doing that. So.
No, I thank you. And I want people to understand is that with a platform like mine, the true intention was that long after we're gone, that we have documentation
Yes.
of these type of conversations, because I still remember when we had the Nuevo Text and they would do the post interviews after the shows.
Yes,
It's also
awesome.
really, I know it was really about the show.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. But then I always, in the back of my mind, always wanted to say, what else do they do? What else is, or how did they get to this point? And for me now, utilizing, like, we're on season 3. We just had at Tigre. We just had Rudy Lopez.
Yeah, I saw.
Yeah, and, and what I always do with all of the people I have on is we always have a pre-discussion, at least a few minutes before, gathering everything, collecting all the thoughts. But again, the first thing I always do is I tell them how much I appreciate their contribution to our community, because a lot of the people, most of the people I have on, I know of them, I've seen them perform, or I have a personal relationship with them. So for me, it's either you inspired me to be a better dancer, or you've inspired me to reach my voice higher, because talking with even Rudy last night, just how personal he got about his own life before dance, and realizing the trials and tribulations he went through, but the respect of him actually saying, I'm going to lay my heart on this platform, allowing you and other people to get a better understanding of me. That means the world to me.
Right. And again, like I said, I personally appreciate you for it. And I'm sure there's plenty of other people that appreciate you for it. I saw that, on your YouTube page that I have up right now, you have about 1,400 subs at this point. So yeah, you have at least that many people that are also appreciating what you do. So,
Absolutely.
Congratulations for that. And I wish nothing but more success for you, and to, see your platforms grow. You know what I mean? So do you think, so I'm going to keep the conversation going. Do you think that things as far as the dance community will ever return to normalcy, or any semblance of normalcy? Or do you feel as though that, things have permanently changed for better or worse?
Well, for me and my wife as well, she works in the medical field. She works in one of the hospitals in New York, Mount Sinai, that was like a big epicenter of all the patients. So I especially speak to my wife a lot about this, and from her understanding, but also I look at the research in terms of the scientists. But also I think people have to understand this before I go into the overhaul or the future of it, is a lot of people don't understand is what we dealt with or what we're dealing with now is something unknown. So the same scientists and people that you regard and you listen to their information, they're also learning day by day.
As they go.
Yeah. So it's one person's remark a few months ago may change because it's about evolution. You're evolving, just like our dance community. And I've realized is that, the events that people want to do now, they are postponing in order to do it next year. Mm-hmm. I really believe that now we are under a new normal. I believe you're going to see a lot more outdoor events, a limited more capacity, but also I think what you're really seeing now are the dancers or the directors that are really taking this seriously, but also ones that are kind of do it with selfish intentions. And it's a reality. I've seen it. I've talked about it. I've dialogued with people about it, and realizing that, hey, you know, with a vaccine or not, this is something that is living with us. And when it comes to events, we are going to hold our promoters and organizers to a higher standard, because we all want to dance, but if we don't do the things necessary to keep us safe, it's only going to prolong that from happening. You know, and for me, I really believe is that the more and more we get more and more research, we can get medication that can help us. But also now just I believe that Congresses are going to change, whether it be a limited capacity, whether it be limited hours, whether it be limited or more expansive rooms. But I really think the limited capacity can happen, and that's either going to help, but it's also can possibly hurt the profits of these organizers. So we also might see a decrease in events. It's really about, it's a waiting game, because every event organizer now is waiting for the word to say, okay, let's do something. But we've also seen from previous experience on social media that doing it too soon is costly. Yeah. So I think, again, it's, I've seen people now kind of just shutting down the notion of 2020. Don't get me wrong. There are people in Vegas and other places trying to do events, and I hope they do it in the safest way possible. But I've definitely seen more people now looking towards 2021 and abroad. So, I mean, for me, I pray that these events now are just going to become more safer. I do see masks being a thing now in events, but I also see now people taking that and running with it and being creative. You know, having your school's mask or having a customized mask, you know, just something maybe flashy, but something for you to feel a normalcy. Exactly. But, you know, for me, it's, again, we're going to be living on the new normal, in my opinion.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's a hard change, and I think that it's something that, you know, obviously none of us were really prepared for, but, you know, I do feel as though that, you know, by and large, we do have to take it just, you know, one day at a time, take everything into consideration as far as, you know, what medical professionals are telling us, what the politicians are telling us, for better or worse, and what, you know, other people are doing in other areas as well, and looking to see who's doing what's being effective, and still trying to not only be healthy, but also be empathetic towards people, because I do see a lot of people that are just doing whatever just because they don't care. The only thing that they really care about is themselves, and it's like, you know, that's part of the reason why we're in the situation that we're in right now, is because we've lost that empathy. We lost that, you know, caring about other people's lives and other people's livelihoods, and, you know, their right to happiness and living, you know. So I hope, you know, going forward that we will start to see more of that, and, you know, things will hopefully adjust accordingly. So
yeah,
again, time will tell, you know. But yeah, so going back to, you know, your platform, right? So me personally, I really do want to see more dancers become content creators, and, you know, leveraging their fan bases, because, you know, I've seen people like Dijon and Chloe, Ernesto and Denise, who else? Angel and Stephanie. Like I've seen them use this platform to really leverage, you know, their fan bases to still be successful, even during a time like this, which is, you know, awesome. Do you think that, and we already, you know, kind of spoken this, but do you think that getting onto these platforms and becoming a content creator as a dancer, you know, has more of a humanizing element to it? And I know we like kind of answered this, but, you know, if you could go into like a little bit more detail on that, and if you think that, you know, it attracts more people to, you know, dancers and content creators when they, you know, step onto these platforms.
Yeah, I really think it does, because when you're putting out content that's also not just a performance, maybe it's a video just talking about your daily life and what you're doing. Maybe it's talking about the practices you're having. I think more than ever, with now the lack of that socialization, people are thriving on, hey, I would love to know what such and such artist is up to. And people like Stephanie Angel and Ernesto and Denise and Dejan and Chloe and many others have really been able to capitalize on this effectively and timely, because we also realize that there are so many dance artists that we know of, but a very limited part of that community is really pushing daily content online. Because again, we've realized over the 21st century, technology is not going anywhere. It is evolving. You have to adapt with the times.
Yeah.
And realizing now, I always tell people too, the biggest thing in our community, we have the Janet Jackson syndrome, and it's more of, what have you done for me lately? So it's like, you know, realizing the people that we loved 5, 10 years ago, for some people, if you don't see them on the internet, if you don't see them on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram, you probably don't see that. Yeah, and it doesn't mean they're not there. It's just sometimes they want to be there, but they don't know how to utilize these platforms efficiently. I mean, for me, I've been from a performer to the guy behind the camera, now solely in front of the camera, speaking to other people, but also relaying messages of myself. But realizing, like, you know, doing a live video with a guest or doing a live video personally with myself, that's content. And that's allowing people to listen and get a better understanding of myself, but it helps others get better understandings of those artists that they love.
Definitely. And another thing that I really appreciate with what you've been doing is, again, going back to what you were saying about some people that, you know, by and large are quote unquote, you know, veterans in the community. They may not be putting out as much content or putting out content at all, you know, and so unfortunately they kind of fall to the back of the mind in the eye of the public. So you going out there and bringing these people back to the forefront of the public eye is really, you know, amazing. I believe you had Ish on recently too. Ismael Otero, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Ismael Otero, Grisel Ponce, Thomas Guerrero. I've had Rudy Lee. I mean, I've had over 33 guests thus far. And I mean, for me, everyone is special. I have some type of connection with them, but especially Ishmael, like, even just being a legend, me and Ishmael go back to when I was younger. Man. So we have you can tell in the conversation, we just talk different, because he understands that I'm coming from a place of, I know where you were when you started this. So it's not like I'm a spectator, like, oh my God, Ishmael Otero. I still am that way. But because I love what Ishmael brings, the creativity, but at the same point, we're human. Right. And I hold him accountable just like I would want him to hold me accountable.
Definitely. And, you know, speaking of Ish, he's like one of the heavy hitters from way back in the day. I remember, you know, when I first started 10 years ago and I started going to congresses and started going up to, you know, New York to dance and train and everything like that, like I would see him and I'm like, holy shit, this dude is like, he's that dude, you know? And seeing him now, like, you know, he posts on Instagram all the time. He's on TikTok. He's on Facebook. Like he's putting out regular content, you know, and, you know, seeing somebody that has been in the game for such a long time, going out here and putting himself out there like that. And again, staying in the public eye, I think is just amazing personally. And I think that all of us could take a note from that. I mean, myself included. I definitely, I'm working on putting more content out there, you know, but, you know, putting out content out there and putting it out on a regular basis, especially nowadays with everybody being, you know, locked onto, you know, their phones or their laptops or iPads, you know, it's easier now more than ever to stay in the public eye. You just need to get out there, put that content out there, put yourself, you know, out on Front Street, and don't be afraid to do so. Just like we're not afraid to, you know, put ourselves on stage and dance in front of 100 people or compete in front of a whole bunch of judges. It's the same thing, you know. You put yourself out there, you put out your best, and, you know, leave it all on the floor, or in this case, leave it out all on the platform, right? And you know, let the people come to you. Let your personality and who you are, both as a person and as a dancer, attract your tribe, right? And I'm such a big proponent of that. What so what made you decide to get onto these platforms specifically? So what made you decide to, want to start a podcast, want to go onto YouTube? Like what was the impetus that made you think, okay, this is where I need to take things?
Well, it really started. I mean, I've always had these inspirations, but a big key point was there was a time in around June, with social media kind of going to buzz, and especially in our dance community and people finding out things about other artists. There was an issue with a gentleman from Florida uh, that he, as a studio owner, there was a lot of things going on in his community that now is being exposed about maybe his, not so much even the political views, but how maybe he was relaying his political views onto his students, and it was really damaging the reputation that he was having with his peers, but then also conversations that this gentleman was having publicly, but also using words that were really demeaning towards people of his same complexion.
Gotcha.
And for me, it really hit home, and I was one of the few people that called that out. But instead of just the back and forth of, I don't like what you said and I don't like what you said, I said, you know what? Let's go live. Let's talk about this. And it turned into a 3-hour conversation with almost 200 people live watching.
Wow.
Of me literally allowing this person to tell their story. Even though I fully don't agree with you, we're going to agree to disagree, but I'm not going to allow the people that support your ideologies to say, oh, look, another person that won't listen to us.
Yeah.
No, I'm going to give you that platform to kind of dig your own grave, in a sense. But I'm not going to shut you out, because my experience also from the military has taught me to take the emotion out of a situation.
Yes,
if
definitely.
you want the best possible result. So for me, for those almost 3 hours of allowing him to talk, but then him also realizing the people that are commenting are people in his scene, people in his city, and now they're realizing the type of person he is. Mm-hmm. And after that moment, people started messaging me and saying, I loved how you handled this conversation. And the main messages were, I loved how you did it because I couldn't do that. I would be upset after
Me.
So
Yeah,
I mean, for me, it's like having a situation that strong, being public and people watching it and appreciating what I was doing was about getting accountability and taking responsibility, but then also apologizing for your actions, especially if they were misinformed and misinterpreted. Because evidently, through the conversation, him saying his emotion allowed him to make those comments that actually backfired. Mm-hmm. But even though if I can agree with that or not, your message was put across. And from there, people would say, I would love for you to talk to different artists. But people didn't realize, once you told me that, and it was, okay, let me start reaching out to artists. But people didn't realize how many artists I really knew behind the scenes. So it was like, when I got the AOK, people were like, how did you get this person? Well, I've known them 10 plus years already, but I don't have to tell you on social media I know them. Right. They just know that I come from their community. I've worked with them in some capacity, but ultimately they know that I respect our scene and I would only do right by it.
Right. That's awesome. And it's great because, you took a situation that, like you said, not a lot of people would have been able to contend with, especially because that emotional aspect was a part of that. And you went specifically with the logic route while still keeping true to yourself. And again, people saw that and were attracted to that. They saw that, this is the kind of person that you are, that you try to be fair to everybody and, give people a platform to say their own truths. And I think that you've done, again, I know I've said it like 50 million times during this interview so far, but I really do think that you've done a fantastic job with that, because again, not a lot of people would be able, to do that. And you have a very specific skill set and you use that to your advantage to, again, attract a fan base that now, you're leveraging. And I don't say leveraging in like a malicious way or anything like that. No,
Yeah, yeah.
you're using it to grow your brand, grow your platform, and get more eyes onto our community, our music, our culture, which again, it's awesome. That's all that we can really ask for, so.
No, I agree. And Brandon, I really want you to know is that for me too, when I did have this platform and slowly doing it, for some people who are in my situation, there's a turning point for some people. And I mean a turning point as if people are more focused on the viewership of the numbers, because they also realize with YouTube and other streamings that it can become a monetary gain. But then there's also people like myself that do it for documentation, but also for therapy. Yeah. Because this is my therapy, being allowed to talk to several guests that I admire, that I idolize. But also for me, it's saying I also not just having to promote my platform, but promoting platforms like yourself and other people, even the dancers you talk about, me sharing their work without having them to tell me or ask me to. That's why I do it. Even when I'm plugging in or I'm talking about my platform, I even brought up in this conversation about House of Aperture and how much I respect it and I've known about it. But it's because, again, I've had memories and different lessons that I've learned throughout my life. And besides promoting my brand, I want to promote everyone's brand.
And that's all you can really ask for, like that cross promotion. I know that, like, when it comes to, YouTubers and Instagrammers and everything like that, cross production, cross platforming, and, communicating with each other and, pushing each other's brand. That's a very, very important aspect of growing. And it's funny because by and large, it, with the dance scene and how it's been, it's kind of counterintuitive to the way that we've been doing things. Like, especially here in Philly. I mean, I can't really, speak for New York because I'm not obviously involved in their community. But as far as, Philly's concerned, there have been several instances where, that cross promotion aspect of things, we've tried to do it. A lot of times it doesn't work that well. So, seeing how now this is something that is so important, to us growing our brands, I really do hope that this is going to be a norm going forward for, the salsa community as a whole, not just, in New York and Philly and DC and whatever. I hope that this is something that people start to do more often, because when all of us win, all of us win. There's so much to be said for that. And I feel like, having this, like, selfish mindset, which some of us have, unfortunately, it really serves as a deterrent from us really seeing the growth that we want to see, both in our dancing, in our businesses, in our reach, so having that cross promotion, having the ability to reach out and work together with people, I really do feel as though that's the way to your ultimate growth. And, seeing how that's really starting to take hold in, the COVID era, DC during quarantine, during COVID. I really do hope to see, more of that, and seeing that aspect of, having a business, having a brand just grow, and more people working together and cross promoting and that sort of thing. It'll be good. It'll be good for all of us.
No, it's true. It's true, because the same conversation we're having right now about that, I've had guests that have told me the same thing. Is we talk about unifying within our community so much, but we normally talk about it privately.
Yeah.
We normally talk about it with other people that are not in the circle of the people we want to work with.
Right.
And I think it's really the fear of the unknown. But I've realized that with quarantine and COVID, and especially the hardest thing for our community is the schools that are no longer around.
Yeah. Definitely.
And realizing that, hey, these are the lessons that we have to learn now, saying, hey, we got to stop all of the stuff before this has happened, and the pettiness and the selfishness. Because again, I understand when directors have to feed their families and have their studios running in optimal flow and range. But again, like you said, the more we unify, the more the eyes are opening of society, because even though we feel we're a big community, we're pretty small. People only know us when they see America's Got Talent, So You Think You Can Dance, or commercialist ways like Dancing with the Stars and their renditions of salsa. But again, it's those moments like when America's Got Talent with Julia and Emily and other teams out there like Tropical Gem from Italy, that they are the ones putting our scene on the map, and we have to unify with them. But it even shows when we're unifying with our local communities and the people we see all the time at these congresses.
Yeah, definitely. So let's see. And bear with me because my memory is horrible, so I gotta like keep looking down my notes.
No worries at all.
I'm not ignoring you, I promise. I'm just looking at my notes.
All good.
What would you? So yeah, we did that. So for those that don't know, because again, when I post this, again, my YouTube channel is for content creators and also dancers. So some content creators may not be aware of some of your guests. So can you go into a little bit of detail about, you know, some of your more notable guests that you've had on the show?
Man, I mean,
he's like, look.
no, like, it's just like, to think about it, for me, like, everybody could say, you know, every guest is special, and I believe that. But I would say definitely like notable guests that I've had on the platform. A few people I would say is Jahaira Fajardo and Angelica Amor Medina from En La Cash Dance Company in Oakland. And what was really special with these two were that they educated me on the language of the LGBTQ plus community in real time. Because also I had to realize while talking to both of them that my language needed to evolve. Mm-hmm. And they were teaching me that things like saying things like, hey guys, to people who identify different from that, it can definitely be deemed harmful. But learning that my language is evolving while we're having the interview, and I'm catching myself now when I say those words and I'm curbing it. Yeah. But now my language is evolving. With her, I've had a gentleman named Timothy Lanier, used to dance for Yamule, now is a dancer in California. Him talking about his previous experience with dance, but also sexual assault and stuff that in our communities that happens. I've talked to one of my favorite guests was Mela Rodriguez, a transgender dancer in our community that, you know, at a young age of 18 right now is really finding her way, because she used to be Marquise and now she's Mela. But coming from a really rough area in the Bronx where that stuff is looked down upon. Yeah. And for me to let her know how much I appreciated her throughout her life, and her bringing up stories of saying, I remember you at Congresses coming up to me and the rest of the group just asking how we're doing. And the memories of saying, that's why I did it, because I wanted you to know was that I cared. Right. Having those conversations those are really tough conversations to have, because again, we always think about people in certain communities, the people in their communities will understand. But no, I'm a part of the straight community, but I love the LGBTQ plus community, and I want to learn more, and I want to be inclusive, and I want the world to see what everyone has to offer and their messages. And besides Mela, talking to Thomas Guerrero about our experience with one another, about his start of Santo Rico. I mean, even talking to Grisel from how she started, was she used to work for Telemundo, you know, with Ishmael. Yeah, she used to work for 6 years with Telemundo, and she was young. She was like 15, 16. Yeah, she's coming straight from Puerto Rico in Jersey, maybe 2 years after, she's working for Telemundo. That's crazy. And the stories I'm hearing with Ishmael of how he started, I mean, to be honest with you, and the stories I've had with Rudy, but from the 16 episodes that I've had in season 1 and the 17 in season 2, it just makes me so thankful that I get to just talk to more and more. Like, I'm going to be talking to Soul Tricks in a couple weeks.
Nice.
Talking to DJ Immersive. I'm talking to Anya Katsevman tomorrow.
Yes, I saw that. That's
I'm
gonna be a
talking
good
to
episode. I can't wait for that.
all the way from Prague, Czech Republic, Crazy Lion, the media guy that I met him a year ago, and we always kept that relationship. But as media people, as we are, we realize, yeah, we could talk to the dancers, we could talk to the organizers, but who's talking to the people who have the cameras?
Mm-hmm.
And that's my thing of saying I'm hitting all realms. I'm also soon talking to a professor who was a close friend of mine, a Latin professor at Princeton, talking about because again, we realize with education, when you hear the 3 letters PhD, people get very nervous.
Yeah, it's like, okay, let me make sure my ears are perked up. You know?
Yeah, so it's like, him actually coming on the platform in a few soon and talking about the road, but the steps in order to obtain such degrees like this without that fear and nervousness. Talking to a deacon from Florida who had a rough life in New York and moved to Florida and showing his trials and tribulations. But, talking to Tina, talking to Kyla, talking to Courtney Matthews, these ladies that I'm speaking of, especially just specifically with Tina, her being part of the LGBTQ plus community, but even saying as we're talking, she's also ignorant to the language. So she's learning herself, but her also talking about her depression and her addiction at one point and still being in recovery and realizing how special, but how important it is that we have these safe spaces so people can just not worry about judgment. Because again, we realize when it comes to therapy, you're paying $150, $250 an hour, but for you to come on my platform and literally just be yourself, you're not going to be hit with rapid questions because how I focus, I just listen to you and I build from there. And those are just some of the people I've had on. It's so many. It's just so many stories. It warms my heart because I've realized talking to them also personally, they felt like, man, they just love me on stage. But people never really ask me how I'm doing.
Yeah.
So for me, it's a blessing to talk to each guest that I'm having on and I'm gonna have on in the future. Because again, everyone's special. Even talking to Rob Briscoe from Philly and him as literally finishing up a rehearsal from Darwin Studio and in the parking lot.
Right to you.
Yeah, and it's like, for me, it's like just seeing the memories, but realizing how much they appreciate someone wanting to listen to them for a set amount of time and they can just be themselves. That's all of them are notable, but those are just some of the people I can say thus far.
Awesome. Cool. So, for people that are just starting out, as far as dances is concerned, for I've been in it for a while. You've been in it for a while. If anything, you've probably been in this for longer than I have, probably, because I've been dancing for just about 10 years. So I don't know.
You started in 2010.
Yeah, just around.
I started in 96.
Why you make me say? All right, we're gonna ignore that. But like for somebody that's just starting out, right, and they're just starting to know the community and how things work and the etiquette and where to go for lessons, where to go to dance, that sort of thing. Like, why do you feel it's important for people that are just starting out to who the movers and shakers are in this community? Like, what I mean, there's obvious answers, but what's in your opinion? Why do you think that it's important for them to know the Grisels, the Ismaels, the Osmans? Like, why is it so important for them to know all these greats that we still have around today?
I think it's very important because, especially even talking with some guests, the importance of education and realizing that, especially if you're going into something, because we realize too, as dancers, there's a road or a fork in the road that either you're going as being a social dancer or you're going to solely perform. but also realizing that the people who are teaching you, that is very key.
Yeah.
Because again, you have to understand that the people who are teaching you, you want to know as well who taught them.
Yeah.
Because I've also seen, not that I have been victim to, but I have seen also people who have learned from certain people and their timing is off. Yeah. And things don't look right. And it's not about just saying who did this and who'd you learn from, but when you're doing the proper research and you're figuring out, as they say, the movers and shakers, that's great. But then also look at the people that went under them and also branched out, because that's also where you can see the influence and where did the teachings come from and how did they promote themselves. Because like you just talked about Ernesto and Denise, they came from Osmal, but also they came from Florida. A lot of people don't know. They came from Florida and they worked in Yamule and did their stuff there. So then they branched out and created Aroko. So now it's like, for people to understand, hey, you may not be able to go all the way to the Bronx to train with Osmal up there. But hey, maybe you can come to Ripley's and train with Ernesto and Denise. And I think it's very important that, again, if you're coming into something that you have a passion for, you love doing, especially when it comes to dance, I think it is important. Educate yourself on what you're learning. If you're learning on one, if you're learning on two, cha-cha, bachata, dance or learn from people who really know the art form, respect it, but also are going to give you a lot of knowledge and wisdom instead of just throwing steps at
you. Definitely. It's so important that, like, I have a group that I teach here in Philly that is it's a group over at one of the local colleges, Temple University. Shout out to Esencia Latina.
Wait, like, you said Esencia Latina?
Yeah.
Wait, so did you teach it was, oh my God, you just said that and it just hit my mind. There was a video of the girls dancing.
Yeah.
I just saw a video posted about that recently. I'm sorry.
Yeah, like, I've been working with them for the last 3 going into 4 years now. And every single semester, fall semester, not spring, but every single fall semester, you know, we gather in all the newbies, we gather in all of the, the vets, and we sit them down. And luckily, we have the room that we practice in. We have this, projector set up, because Temple uses it for like a whole bunch of other events and stuff, so it's already set up. And I basically give them a rundown of the history of salsa. And you've probably seen it, the video of Izzy Sanabria from like back, I think it's like the 70s or something like that, when he was emceeing this concert.
It is salsa.
Yes, exactly. Yes. And one of my students knows that video like the back of their hand, and he literally takes like 2-3 minutes and gives an entire rundown of the history of salsa and where the culture comes from, And I feel like giving them that knowledge gives them more of a appreciation for the culture, for the dance, for the people, for the music, than it would have if you just automatically start throwing steps and patterns at them, like actually giving them an appreciation from where it comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And then from after that, even as I, start teaching them as far as, their timing and their footwork and their partner work, like every single class, I'm showing them videos of Yamle. I'm showing them videos of Santo Rico from back in the day. I'm showing them videos of, local artists, Art in Motion and Britos and all that. And, giving them a well-rounded education, not just in the steps, not just in, the patterns. That's not the kind of dancers that I want to create, because that's how I was taught when I came up. I was given that information, and I think that, nowadays we're kind of, getting away from that. Mm-hmm. And, I want to do my part to try and contribute towards getting back to that, making sure that, dancers get a well-rounded dance education, and not just the dance, but also the music, the culture, the history, and everything. So I definitely, agree with that. As far as you, again, being both a dancer as well as a filmmaker, what advice do you have for dancers, and what advice do you have for new content creators? Like what would be some things that you would tell them to point them in the right direction going forward?
I would say for dancers is to really push the envelope within yourself. Do not hinder yourself from learning and realizing that you're never going to be the perfect dancer. The focus is making yourself a complete dancer.
Yeah.
Realizing that taking classes in the basic fundamentals, even though you've been dancing 10 plus years, is still essential. Also taking different workshops in different genres of dance helps. Realizing now, especially if you want to promote yourself and your brand, utilize the online market efficiently for yourself, and don't be afraid to do cross-platforming and supporting other people, because the more people you support and that support you, the fan base can grow so much larger. But also for content creators, I think the most important thing is just because you have a camera specifically does not make you a filmmaker.
Yeah.
But also the most important thing is making meaningful content, because we realize in this day and age, especially with YouTube or other platforms, you can make a 5-second video, a 10-second, 30-second, an hour-long film. But in reality, it's about making more meaningful content, especially if you're in this dance world, is really focusing on shedding light on the beauty of our scene and capturing those elements. It's great to capture a 30-second clip of someone social dancing, but let's see the full clip. Let's see how the emotion in their face. This isn't just about clickbait. For me, I've always told people as a filmmaker now on YouTube with like over 250 visuals, that must show you that I really love this community, that I take my time to come and travel to such and such place and just film, but also socialize. As being content creators, just making sure that you're making more meaningful content and not content that is going to just get you the quick clickbait.
Yeah.
We have that everywhere. So the more you as a content creator, the man or the woman or the person behind the lens realizes the responsibility you have of what you put out. Just understand, how many people that can actually inspire.
Definitely. That's an awesome answer. So, speaking of cameras, right? Because I am, in addition to being an artist, I am a huge gearhead. I've been about the tech since I was like in high school and everything like that. So, when you first started with filming, what was the camera that you started with?
It was a Canon T3i. That was the first
classic.
Classic, yeah, with a stock lens on it. I mean, when you bought the light on Amazon, you thought it came out the way it did and was a little off, but you worked around it. The Canon actually my first video was a Canon PowerShot, like IX something.
Oh,
but
wow.
This was
a little point and shoot.
Yeah, with a little point and shoot. And 40 hours later in Dominican Republic, you got all this footage. But I mean, when I came back, I was doing socials and festivals like in Rhode Island with a Canon T3i. Then it graduated to a T6i. Then it was like, you got to get the 70D. And then, it got more evolved, but it got more expensive as well.
Oh, God, yes. We didn't even talk about that.
Oh, yeah. I've spent close to $6,000 thus far on total camera equipment. From when I first started to now, about 6,000.
Yeah. Like, people don't take into consideration that you can get started in this relatively cheaply. Yeah. Relatively. But things start adding up quick.
It does.
Extremely quick. The whole thing is, like, you're always trying to, not only improve yourself as a photographer or as a filmmaker, but, also trying to put out the best product and trying to streamline your processes, streamline your equipment and that sort of thing. And the process of both increasing production value as well as streamlining things, it gets very, very expensive. You're like, oh, well, things will look better if I get this lens. And then I need to get this monitor so I can see better and get focus better. And then this camera focuses for me. So I'm just going to get it.
No, it is, but you know what? But I would say this too. A lot of people don't get, and I tell people this: the camera does not make you.
Yes.
It can surely break you. And what I mean by break you is that a lot of people have to realize, especially in this dance scene, it really does not always matter about the lens. It matters about the eye.
Yep.
Because anyone can have a Red Dragon. And we know with those $10,000 cameras, that's my dream to have. But I'll get there. My thing is now is what I do with what I have, but as long as I put out the meaningful content I want at an effective time and with the right direction, I'm good. And I know people will receive it. My thing is just that I don't want people to just think, oh man, the new Sony, the AR3 just came out and I'm gonna be one of the best.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean anything. And I've seen it. I've seen people with $1,000 cameras when I first started, and I had promoters saying, I like your content more than his. And it was an eye-opener for them to tell me, like, I'd rather have you than this person because the way you edit and the way the images you put out are awesome. The person that I'm seeing with this X amount of dollar camera are just, they don't get it. Yeah. You know, so it's really just the person behind the camera. Your eye is important. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I definitely transitioned from a Canon to Sony.
Okay.
So that's been my thing now. It's a lot easier. It's been a little more expensive, but I've saved up enough money that I got a pretty good arsenal right now with me.
Nice. Cool. So speaking of your arsenal, so as it stands right now, you said you're a Sony guy now. So what's your main body? What's your daily go-to as it stands right now?
My main go-to right now is either my 6300 Sony A63 or A65. Okay. I've gotten different lenses, whether it be stocks or Rokinon, Samyangs, because really I've learned over time when it comes to a lot of dance events, the biggest thing that lacks sometimes is lighting.
Yes.
So making sure is that you have the right lens, the correct lens for the environment that you're in. Because the big thing people do, and I respect it, is you have the big bright light.
Yeah.
But what I was starting to get known for in New York was not having a light, but having the lens that can at least capture enough light from what I'm getting and really focus on the artist so they don't feel like a deer in the headlights. And it feels more natural. We know the feeling of going around and like people are like, oh, and it's nerve-wracking. And that's sometimes even performers.
Yeah.
Because some of them are just nervous when they social dance. So as a performer, I said I wanted to change the game. And don't get me wrong, I use the lights at certain events or festivals because it does help the quality of my video.
Right.
But I think too is choosing the right lens. I love my Sony A65. That's my baby right now. I just got a nice Crane M2 gimbal, less than $200, simplistic, because again, I know the content I'm creating. I also want to put a lot less pressure on myself because holding backpacks, holding lenses, cameras, I just want to be as minimalistic as possible when I'm shooting and comfortable as possible when I'm shooting.
Exactly. And I think a lot of people, take that for granted. You see people like, Peter McKinnon, world famous YouTuber, and this guy, he's doing vlogs with a 1DX3, which it's huge. It's like bigger than my face, and don't get me wrong, the quality that comes out of it is astounding, but there's a lot to be said for a smaller, more compact, but still capable camera. Yes. And, the Sony series, especially with the 6000 series, like you have the A7 series even, they fit that bill. They're more compact than a, full frame, DSLR with a battery grip on it, but it can still have like fantastic footage that comes out of it. And, people don't take into consideration that, yes, the camera, it does contribute a lot to the final image, but the main thing that contributes the most to an image is your light. And not only the light, but the quality of the light. What direction is it coming from? How harsh is it? How soft is it? You know, like what I was doing, before the apocalypse happened, and we were still having socials. I was using, or I'm still using, is what I'm filming on right now. I have a Panasonic G9, and the reason why I picked that was because it's got built-in stabilization, so I can literally handhold things. And if I have a wide enough lens, it looks very, very stable. It has decent enough low light, has great codecs, but even with all that being said, the main thing that really, I think, separated my work from other people, both locally and, in some aspects, some people that were, still shooting congresses, was that I lit my scenes like it was a film set, right?
Yes.
So I literally I have two Cane TV LED spotlights, and I would put them on opposing corners of the dance floor and cross-light it. And wherever the beams cross, I'm shooting on either side of that. So now I have a hair light and I have a key light, and it's not anywhere near the actual person that I'm shooting. So it's not like, like you said, having that deer in the headlight look with somebody like beaming an LED right onto, whoever it is that's dancing. It looks like the light is coming from the actual environment, but it's just bright enough that you can still make out who it is. You have enough light to capture the action, and it looks very cinematic, Yeah. And I feel that, like you said, a lot of people need to get that into their heads. It's not about the camera. The camera is important, yes, don't get me wrong, but you have to wrap your head around lighting. That's what's going to separate mediocre work from people taking a look at your stuff and be like, yeah, we need to hire him. We need to pay him to do something, or I want you to, shoot my portraits or shoot my wedding or something along those lines. That's what's going to get you that kind of traction.
That's true, because especially, and I'll say this in New York, lighting isn't always the best. Mm-hmm. And I've been to events that I love deeply that have next to no lighting. Yeah, and it's like I evidently have to use my LED or my RGB light, which I love. I love the RGB lights, even though they're pretty expensive themselves. But it's because I'm putting work into my craft. I'm putting those 10,000 hours in. Because again, I've had the experience of, man, I filmed all these hours of footage, even with this light, but because I get nothing from the studio, it has that graininess. And it's like, that's a lesson learned. So, I mean, from the 200 plus videos or visuals I've done thus far, it's gonna continuously get better. But what I also do is I look at visuals like you've done when you did at Bachata Tuesdays in Philly. I've looked at other events that other videographers, and I'm learning why you captured that shot at that moment, at that angle. Yep. And it's like, okay, I respect it. Let me see in this setting, because we're not always in the same arenas. One of my favorite events to film at, and I've only did it once, was Bachata Obsessions in Jersey. Okay. That space is huge.
The Stardust. That thing is.
I love it. I wish I had something like that in New York. I wish, but I mean, you learn every environment is different, and definitely for many future videographers, lighting is key.
Definitely. So pay attention, videographers. So a couple more questions. I'm gonna let you go, because I don't know. I remember I said it was gonna be 30 minutes, and here we are, like an hour and a half later. So,
no worries, man.
Somebody plops $100,000 in your lap, says, "Go to B&H, get what you want, spend it." What are you going for? What are you getting?
I'm definitely gonna get. I have to get my Red Dragon. That's just something that's something I couldn't even ask my wife to get me. That's for me. I'd get my Red Dragons. I would definitely, most importantly, get all the most premium lighting equipment available, coming along with the bags in order to sort and organize things correctly, because nothing's worse than going to an event and losing your equipment. Yes. And losing your perfect lens that you loved and misplacing it. For me, getting really those top of the line lenses that really focus on maybe the 18 to 60 millimeter the 1.4 aperture range type of lenses. And people have to understand the light, the lesser the aperture, I think for me, and yes, it just brings everything back. It brings everything closer together. And for me, it's really the lenses. It's really the lighting. A Red Dragon. I'd get my A7, the S3s.
Yeah.
I definitely really would love to now. I started with the Canons. I've worked with Sonys. I want to work with Panasonics. I really want to now really focus on, and trust me, B&H is amazing. My dad used to work in B&H.
It's a candy store for adults. It
is. But it's a like, you don't want to go there when you just got your check. Because it's just like
you will walk out broke.
They always have something new, but also too, I really want to get the top of the line mics. I want to get the top of the line headphones because again, as a videographer and putting out content in
sound
congresses,
so
now I'm doing live streaming or podcast. I want to bring that same quality. See you're telling me about the Panasonic G9. I have my Sonys and my Canons, and evidently now I'm focusing on getting the right products or the right resources so that I can use that for my podcast in the future. But really, before anything, even with the 100,000, before I even go to B&H, I'm going right online so I can do my research.
Exactly.
That's the biggest thing. We can talk about all the stuff we've seen and we love, but maybe there's another product that works just as better, but it's cheaper.
Exactly.
Because it's not always about how much it costs. It's what does it produce for me? Because
and how does it work for you?
Yes, because a lot of people don't understand videographers in terms of dancing. I think the really key frames per rate that really changed was the 60 and the 120. 60 and 120 has become the quintessential frames per second that people adore because that's where you get into your slow-mos.
Yep.
So for me, and mind you, all of this research that I'm learning, I did it on my own. I didn't go to a class for it. I was apprentice for many different videographers that done music videos, and I learned from them. I learned from people that had nothing to do with the dance world, and I just sat there and just told them, I'm going to help you. I'll pick up your lenses. I'll pick up whatever you need. I'll be your apprentice, your personal assistant. Just teach me. And for me, I think it's really important. Yeah, soaking in all that knowledge. And again, just doing my research before I even go into any actions.
Definitely. And speaking of research, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been watching thus far, we're about to, close up shop. But before we do, I have a special gift for everybody that is watching. So make sure that you stay tuned. But before we go, just a couple things. Make sure that, first off, I have to say that I have to thank Mr. Diamond Rivera for stopping through and having a wonderful, wonderful discussion on a whole bunch of different topics, from content creation, dance, everything in between. Thank you so much for taking time to, talk to me and basically give people an idea of what you do, who you are, and how you're serving the community both in the past and now and going forward. So thank you so much for that, for stopping by.
Absolutely. I thank you so much, Brandon, for
allowing me to
your platform.
If you guys are interested, definitely check him out. All the links will be down below. We're going to have links for his Spotify, for his Google Play, Apple Play, his YouTube channel, his Facebook group. All of the links will be down below. So definitely make sure that you check him out and make sure that you subscribe to his YouTube channel so that way you can see when he has more of these amazing guests on his show. I believe tomorrow, like you said, Anya Katsevman, one of the biggest names in salsa right now as far as coaching, styling, competing. She's going to be on tomorrow. So definitely make sure you guys subscribe and stay tuned for that episode because that is going to be a banger. So make sure you stay tuned for that. Also, again, I know that I said that it was just going to be 30 minutes and we definitely went over that, but
it's all good, man. It's all good.
If you have stayed this long so far, down below, again, going back to, making sure you do your research. If you're planning on picking up camera equipment for photography or videography, the main thing that I always suggest to people is to make sure that you actually try the equipment before you actually buy. One of the best things that you can do is rent equipment. It's a lot cheaper than just buying it outright. I actually have a link down below for the lens renting company that I use, lensrentals.com. And it is a $25, what do you call them, $25 off link for you to pretty much rent anything in the store, and you get $25 off your first rental. So, Diamond, if you're interested, you'll be,
yeah.
You'll have access to that. Everybody that's watching, you're gonna have access to that too. So that way, if you've been thinking about getting a specific camera and getting into content creation, now is the time. And now I'm giving you no excuse to do so, and I'm actually going to help you with that as well. Okay. So once again, thank you everybody that is watching. Thank you for checking out Dancers That Shoot. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you again to Mr. Diamond Rivera for stopping by and blessing us with his presence. I really do appreciate you, good sir.
Thank
you. Stay safe out there, and I will be looking forward to seeing your episode tomorrow. All right?
Absolutely.
And everybody, make sure you go like and subscribe to all of his stuff as well. Like I said, links down below, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.